beloved of the Lord, in the mighty and matchless name of Jesus, I declare that this is your season of thanksgiving, your hour of joy, and your moment of divine blessings overflowing into every area of your life. Today, we enter the presence of God with hearts full of gratitude, because when praise rises, burdens begin to break. Can I ask you something? What is one thing you are grateful to God for today? No matter what this week has looked like, you are still here, still standing, still breathing by the mercy of God. That means heaven is not finished with your story yet. Have you paused to thank God, not only for what He has done, but also for what He is preparing behind the scenes? Sometimes we are so focused on what is missing that we forget to celebrate what is already in our hands. But gratitude changes perspective, and perspective changes atmosphere. Tell me in the comments, where are you watching from today, and what blessing has God placed in your life recently? As you listen, I believe chains of heaviness will break, peace will flood your heart, and joy will begin to rise again. Doesn't your spirit need a fresh encounter with God's goodness today? If you are ready to receive divine favor, take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs encouragement, and type, "Thank you, Lord," in the comments as a prophetic act of faith. Are you expecting God to do something beautiful in your life this week? The moment your eyes opened this morning was not an accident, and the breath in your lungs is already proof that God has been good to you. Before you ask Him for anything, before you begin listing your needs, your desires, and your expectations, there is power in first pausing to say, "Lord, thank you." Have you taken a moment today just to thank God for waking you up? So many people rush into the day carrying pressure, responsibilities, and concerns, but they forget that gratitude is one of the most powerful spiritual keys available to them. When you begin your day with thanksgiving, you are intentionally shifting your focus from problems to promises. Isn't it amazing how one simple act of gratitude can completely change your perspective? Thanksgiving reminds your soul that God has already been faithful. It helps you remember the battles you survived, the tears you overcame, and the doors that opened only because His hand was upon your life. Can you think of one difficult season God already brought you through? Sometimes we become so focused on what we are still praying for that we overlook what is already in our hands. Yet the fact that you have another opportunity, another sunrise, another chance to grow, love, and begin again is itself a miracle. Have you thanked God for the gift of another day? When you start the day with gratitude, you are not denying challenges. You are simply refusing to allow your challenges to become bigger than your awareness of God's goodness. Isn't that a powerful way to begin your morning? There may be things in your life that are still unresolved. Perhaps there are prayers you are still waiting on, answers you have not yet received, and situations that seem unclear. But gratitude says, even while I wait, I trust you. Are you willing to trust God even in the waiting season? A grateful heart is a protected heart. Why? Because gratitude guards your mind from negativity, comparison, and discouragement. It creates spiritual stability. Have you noticed how comparison can steal joy if you are not careful? The enemy would love for you to begin your day immediately consumed by what is missing, what is late, what is broken, or what feels uncertain. But Thanksgiving interrupts that pattern. It reminds you that your life is not defined by lack, but by the goodness of a generous God. What if today you chose to focus on what is present instead of what is absent? When you say thank you, you are acknowledging that everything you have is ultimately a gift. Your strength is a gift. Your mind is a gift. Your family, your opportunities, your lessons, and even your growth through difficult seasons are gifts. Can you name one gift from God you may have taken for granted? There is something deeply humbling about gratitude. It softens the heart and realigns the soul. It reminds you that you are not self-sustained, self-made, or self-preserved. Every good thing comes from God. Doesn't that awareness make your heart more tender before Him? Thanksgiving also changes the emotional atmosphere of your home. Imagine beginning your morning with praise instead of panic, worship instead of worry, and gratitude instead of frustration. How different would your day feel if your first conversation was with God instead of with your fears? Some people begin their day scrolling through news, messages, and distractions, immediately absorbing stress and noise. But what if you started differently? What if before touching anything else, you whispered, "Father, thank you for another day"? Could that small shift become the foundation for a more peaceful life? Gratitude is not reserved for perfect seasons. In fact, some of the most powerful thanksgiving comes from imperfect moments. It is easy to praise when everything is flowing, but true spiritual maturity is revealed when you can still say thank you in the middle of uncertainty. Have you learned how to praise God even when everything is not yet resolved? There is power in thanking God for ordinary things. Thank Him for the roof over your head. Thank Him for food, for mobility, for wisdom, for divine protection you didn't even notice. How often do we overlook the ordinary miracles surrounding us? You may not realize how much God has protected you from. Some doors were closed for your safety. Some delays were actually divine protection. Some endings were necessary for your next chapter. Can you look back now and see where God was protecting you all along? Starting your day with thanksgiving strengthens your faith because it forces you to remember history with God. It reminds you that if He did it before, He can do it again. Has God ever come through for you at the very last moment? Memory is important in faith. When you remember what God has already done, your confidence for today increases. Gratitude becomes a bridge between yesterday's miracles and tomorrow's possibilities. What testimony has God already written in your life? A thankful person carries different energy. They walk differently, speak differently, and respond differently. Gratitude produces steadiness. It keeps your spirit anchored. Have you noticed how grateful people often carry a deeper sense of peace? This is why Thanksgiving is not just an emotion, it is a discipline. It is a decision you make, regardless of feelings. Even on difficult mornings, you can still choose gratitude. Will you make that choice today? Perhaps this week did not begin the way you expected. Maybe you are carrying emotional weight, private disappointments, or unanswered questions. Yet even now, you can choose to begin again through gratitude. Isn't it comforting to know you can reset your heart at any moment? The beauty of Thanksgiving is that it costs nothing, yet it changes everything. It can lift your mood, sharpen your focus, calm your emotions, and strengthen your connection with God. Why would we ever underestimate something so powerful? When gratitude fills your heart, entitlement leaves. Complaining decreases, bitterness weakens, perspective returns. Suddenly you begin to see life through a healthier lens. What might change in your life if gratitude became your daily practice? This is the invitation today. Begin differently. Before demands arise, before stress enters, before the pace of the day increases, start with God. Start with thanks. Start with awareness of His goodness. Can you commit to beginning every morning this way? Say it quietly if you need to. Lord, thank you for this day. Thank you for sustaining me. Thank you for what I see and what I do not yet see. Sometimes that simple prayer is enough to realign your entire soul. Will you say those words with faith today? And as you continue listening, allow your heart to become more conscious of all that God has already done. Let gratitude become your first language this morning. Tell me in the comments, what is one thing you are thanking God for right now? There is something powerful that happens when gratitude fills your heart. The atmosphere within you begins to shift, your thoughts begin to realign, and suddenly the weight you were carrying does not feel as heavy as before. Have you ever noticed how one sincere moment of thanksgiving can instantly change your mood? A thankful heart creates room for joy. Not artificial happiness that depends on circumstances, but deep inner joy that comes from knowing God is present, faithful, and actively working in your life. Isn't that the kind of joy your soul has been longing for? Many people are searching for peace while holding tightly to anxiety, frustration, and constant mental noise. But gratitude has a way of quieting inner chaos. When you thank God, your attention is redirected from pressure to presence. What has been occupying your thoughts lately more than the goodness of God? Sometimes the reason your heart feels heavy is not because God has been absent, but because your focus has become consumed by problems. The human mind naturally magnifies whatever it consistently observes. If you focus only on obstacles, obstacles begin to feel overwhelming. Have you been focusing more on what is wrong than on what is still right? Gratitude interrupts emotional heaviness. It does not erase your responsibilities, but it changes how you carry them. Suddenly you remember that you are not facing life alone. Doesn't it feel comforting to know God is involved in every detail? Joy is not something you wait to experience after every problem disappears. If that were true, many people would spend their whole lives postponing joy. Real joy is cultivated in the present moment through awareness of what God is already doing. Are you allowing yourself to experience joy now, or are you delaying it until everything is perfect? Perfection is not a requirement for gratitude. You can be thankful while healing. You can be thankful while rebuilding. You can be thankful while waiting for answers. Have you learned how to hold both faith and gratitude in the same season? A grateful person understands that joy is a spiritual strength. Joy is not weakness. Joy is not denial. Joy is evidence that your peace is rooted in something deeper than external conditions. Could it be that your joy is one of the greatest forms of resistance against discouragement? There are people whose circumstances look ideal, yet their hearts are restless. And there are others navigating real challenges who still radiate peace, because gratitude has transformed their inner world. Which kind of person do you want to become? Thanksgiving changes your internal dialogue. Instead of saying, "Nothing is working," gratitude reminds you, "God is still working." Instead of saying, "I have nothing," gratitude says, "I have more than I realized." How much of your emotional exhaustion is connected to the stories you keep repeating to yourself? Words matter. The language you consistently speak shapes the environment of your mind. Complaints feed heaviness, but thanksgiving nourishes hope. What kind of language has been dominating your life recently? Gratitude also reduces emotional clutter. It simplifies your heart. It helps you stop obsessing over everything beyond your control and return your attention to what truly matters. Doesn't your mind sometimes feel overcrowded with unnecessary stress? Joy grows when you become present. Gratitude anchors you in the now. It helps you notice the beauty available in this moment instead of constantly chasing the next one. When was the last time you truly slowed down and appreciated where you are? Sometimes we think joy will come through achievement, possession, or external validation, yet many people reach goals and still feel empty. Why? Because joy is not primarily produced by accumulation but by alignment. Are you seeking joy in temporary places? Gratitude aligns your heart with truth. It reminds you that your value is not based on productivity, applause, or comparison. You are already loved, already seen, already sustained by God. How would your life change if you truly believed that? Comparison is one of the quickest thieves of joy. The moment you start measuring your journey against someone else's timeline, your peace begins to weaken. But gratitude brings you back to your own story. Have you been distracted by someone else's progress? Your life is unique. Your process is unique. Your timing is unique. Gratitude helps you honor your own path without resentment. Isn't that a much healthier way to live? When you thank God, your nervous system even begins to respond differently. Your breathing slows, your shoulders relax, and your body receives signals of safety and calm. Have you ever physically felt lighter after prayer and thanksgiving? This is why gratitude is both spiritual and practical. It affects your soul, your mind, your emotions, and even your physical state. It is one of the simplest disciplines with some of the deepest impact. Why do we sometimes neglect something so transformative? A grateful heart becomes emotionally resilient. Life will still bring challenges, disappointments, and unexpected turns, but gratitude strengthens your ability to recover. It helps you bend without breaking. Have you noticed how some people remain grounded no matter what comes? That stability is often built through consistent thanksgiving. Not occasional gratitude, but a lifestyle of recognizing God's goodness daily. Could consistency in gratitude be the missing ingredient in your emotional life? Joy also becomes contagious. A joyful spirit influences your family, your environment, and your conversations. People can sense when someone carries genuine peace. What atmosphere are you bringing into the spaces you enter? If your home has felt tense, if your mind has felt burdened, if your spirit has felt depleted, gratitude can become the reset point. It can shift the entire emotional climate. Wouldn't your heart benefit from that kind of reset today? Even in seasons of grief or uncertainty, gratitude still has a place. It may look quieter, it may feel more intentional, but it remains powerful. You can thank God for His nearness, His comfort, and His sustaining grace. Have you experienced God holding you together during difficult times? Sometimes joy returns gradually, not as an explosion, but as a gentle restoration. A little more peace, a little more hope, a little more emotional capacity. Are you open to allowing God to restore your joy one day at a time? Thanksgiving makes room for that restoration. It tells your heart, there is still goodness here. There is still beauty here. There is still reason to hope. Can you identify one good thing present in your life right now? You do not need to wait for a major breakthrough to become joyful. You can access gratitude today. You can choose peace today. You can experience inner steadiness today. What if your breakthrough begins with a shift in perspective? Take inventory of what remains instead of obsessing over what was lost. Take inventory of what is working instead of only analyzing what is not. Gratitude sharpens awareness. What blessings are still active in your life that you may have ignored? Perhaps you still have strength to keep going. Perhaps you still have wisdom for your next decision. Perhaps you still have people who love you, opportunities ahead, and divine favor over your future. Isn't that worth thanking God for? As your heart fills with gratitude, joy naturally rises. Not forced joy, but authentic joy rooted in trust. And where joy grows, peace follows closely behind. Tell me in the comments, what has God given you recently that brought unexpected joy into your life? One of the greatest signs of spiritual maturity is learning how to recognize the hand of God in everyday life. So often, people are waiting for dramatic miracles while overlooking the quiet blessings already surrounding them. Have you taken time recently to notice how much God is already doing in your life? Not every blessing arrives with fanfare. Some blessings are subtle, steady, and easy to miss if your attention is constantly fixed on what you still desire. Yet God's goodness is often hidden in the ordinary moments of life. Could it be that some of your greatest blessings are already in your hands? The ability to wake up in the morning is a blessing. The strength to get out of bed, the function of your mind, the breath in your lungs, and another opportunity to begin again are blessings many people underestimate. When was the last time you thanked God simply for being alive? We can become so accustomed to daily routines that we stop seeing their value. Clean water, food on the table, transportation, shelter, access to learning, and people who care for us can quickly become familiar instead of appreciated. Have you unintentionally become too familiar with your blessings? Familiarity often reduces gratitude. What was once prayed for becomes normalized. What once felt like a miracle becomes expected. But a wise heart knows how to stay thankful even for what has become routine. Can you remember something you once desperately prayed for that is now part of your everyday life? Maybe you once prayed for the job you now complain about. Maybe you once asked God for the relationship, the opportunity, the home, or the season you are currently living in. Isn't it interesting how quickly we can forget answered prayers? Recognizing God's daily blessings requires intentional awareness. Gratitude is not automatic. It is cultivated through attention. You must train your mind to notice what is good, what is working, and what is still available to you. What are you paying attention to most these days? If your attention is consumed only by goals not yet reached, you may constantly feel behind. But when you slow down and observe what is already present, contentment begins to grow. Do you allow yourself to celebrate progress, or are you always rushing toward the next milestone? God's blessings are often woven into simple moments. A peaceful conversation, a protected journey, a kind message from someone, an unexpected solution, an open door that came at just the right time. Have you noticed any small moments recently that felt like divine favor? Not every blessing is material. In fact, some of the most valuable blessings cannot be purchased. Wisdom is a blessing. Discernment is a blessing. Emotional growth is a blessing. Healing from past pain is a blessing. Which invisible blessing has God been developing in your life lately? Perhaps God has been strengthening your patience. Perhaps He has been teaching you boundaries, resilience, humility, or deeper trust. Growth itself is evidence of grace. Can you see how much you have changed over the last year? Sometimes blessings arrive disguised as lessons. Not every answered prayer looks the way you imagined. Some blessings come through redirection, correction, or delay. Have you ever looked back and realized something difficult was actually protecting or preparing you? There are closed doors you should be thankful for. There are relationships that ended for your benefit. There were opportunities that never happened because something better was being preserved. Can you now see purpose in something that once disappointed you? Divine protection is one of the most overlooked blessings. You may never fully know how many dangers, mistakes, or unnecessary burdens God has shielded you from. How many times has God protected you in ways you didn't even recognize at the time? Some blessings are not about what you gained, but what you avoided. A delayed plan, a changed route, a canceled opportunity, a decision you were prevented from making. Isn't it comforting to know that God can protect you even from things you do not see? Relationships are also daily blessings worth noticing. The people who encourage you, support you, pray for you, challenge you, and walk alongside you are gifts. Have you expressed gratitude for the people who add value to your life? Too often, people focus on who left and forget to appreciate who stayed. But wisdom teaches you to honor what remains. Who has been a source of support or kindness in your current season? Your own capacity is also a blessing. The fact that you are still learning, still adapting, still dreaming, and still trying is significant. You may not be where you want to be, but you are not where you used to be. Can you acknowledge your own growth today? Sometimes people minimize their progress because they are measuring themselves against unrealistic standards. But progress deserves recognition. Small improvements matter. Consistency matters. Have you been too hard on yourself lately? There is blessing in peace. A calm mind is a blessing. A restful night is a blessing. Clarity in decision making is a blessing. Emotional stability is a blessing. Which area of peace has God been restoring in your life? We often think blessings must be dramatic to be meaningful, but that is not true. Sometimes the absence of chaos is itself a blessing. A season of stability can be just as sacred as a season of expansion. Are you appreciating the blessing of stability? The more you recognize daily blessings, the less room negativity has to dominate your mind. Gratitude builds perspective. It reminds you that life is not only made up of problems. What blessing have you overlooked because your attention was fixed elsewhere? This awareness also changes how you approach prayer. Instead of only bringing requests, you begin arriving with thanksgiving. Your relationship with God deepens because you are no longer only focused on receiving, but also on recognizing. How might your prayer life shift if gratitude became more central? A grateful person sees differently. They become more observant, more grounded, and more emotionally balanced. Blessings that others ignore become deeply meaningful. Wouldn't you rather live with that kind of awareness? The truth is, your life may contain more blessings than you currently realize. But if you never pause, reflect, and observe, you may miss the evidence of God's goodness all around you. When was the last time you intentionally counted your blessings? Try mentally listing them right now. Your life, your growth, your opportunities, your lessons, your protection, your relationships, your future. Even this present moment is a gift. What came to your mind first? Gratitude multiplies awareness. The more you notice, the more thankful you become. And the more thankful you become, the more joy enters your life. Isn't it amazing how recognition can transform experience? So today, open your eyes a little wider. Slow down a little more. Become more intentional about observing God's goodness in ordinary spaces. Tell me in the comments, what is one daily blessing you often forget to thank God for? Faith is often most visible not after the breakthrough, but before it. Anyone can celebrate once the answer has arrived, once the door has opened, once the miracle becomes visible. But there is a deeper level of trust that says, God, I thank you even now, before I see anything change. Have you ever thanked God for something that had not happened yet? This kind of gratitude is powerful because it is rooted in confidence, not circumstance. It does not depend on evidence in the natural. It is based on trust in the character of God. Do you trust God enough to thank Him while you are still waiting? Waiting seasons can be uncomfortable. They stretch your patience, test your focus, and sometimes challenge your emotional stability. But waiting is not wasted when your heart remains anchored in faith. What season of waiting are you currently navigating? Perhaps you are waiting for healing, clarity, provision, restoration, direction, or a long-awaited opportunity. The temptation in these moments is to become discouraged or impatient. Yet gratitude changes the posture of waiting. Instead of waiting with frustration, you begin waiting with expectation. Isn't that a healthier way to carry uncertainty? Thanking God before the breakthrough comes is a declaration that your hope is not fragile. It says, I do not need to see the full picture to remain confident. Could your current season be an invitation to deepen your trust? So many people only celebrate after the result appears. But faith-filled gratitude celebrates in advance. It honors God not only for what has been done, but for what is already in motion. Have you considered that some of your prayers may already be unfolding behind the scenes? There is so much happening beyond your immediate awareness. Doors are being aligned. People are being positioned. Timing is being orchestrated. Circumstances are shifting in ways you cannot yet see. Can you trust that God is working even in silence? Silence is often misunderstood. When answers are delayed, people sometimes assume inactivity, but divine silence is not divine absence. Just because you cannot see movement does not mean movement is not occurring. Have you mistaken delay for denial? Gratitude during uncertainty protects your heart from becoming bitter. It keeps disappointment from hardening your spirit. Instead of becoming resentful, you remain receptive. Isn't emotional flexibility important in seasons of waiting? Sometimes the delay is not punishment, it is preparation. God may be developing your character, refining your priorities, or strengthening your capacity to sustain what you are asking for. What if the waiting is serving a purpose you do not yet understand? Many people want immediate outcomes without internal readiness. But wisdom recognizes that timing matters. Receiving too early can be just as disruptive as receiving too late. Can you appreciate the value of divine timing? When you thank God before the breakthrough, you are aligning your emotions with trust rather than fear. Fear says, what if this never happens? Gratitude says, I believe what is meant for me will arrive in the right time. Which voice has been louder in your life recently? Anticipatory gratitude changes your internal atmosphere. It creates peace in uncertainty. It allows you to remain emotionally stable, even while outcomes are unresolved. Wouldn't your heart benefit from that kind of peace? There is also humility in breakthrough thanksgiving. It acknowledges that outcomes are not controlled solely by human effort. It reminds you that there are dimensions of life requiring divine guidance, timing, and favor. How often do you remember to invite God into your expectations? This does not mean you stop taking action. Gratitude is not passivity. You still prepare, still learn, still show up, still steward your responsibilities well. But your inner state is different. You move with trust instead of panic. Are you currently moving from faith or from anxiety? Panic often creates urgency that leads to poor decisions. Gratitude slows you down enough to remain clear. It reminds you that what is meant for you does not require desperation. Have you ever made a rushed decision simply because you were tired of waiting? Thanksgiving in advance also keeps your vision healthy. It prevents you from obsessing over timelines. You stop demanding that life unfold according to your exact schedule. Instead, you become more open, flexible, and surrendered. Could surrender be the lesson this season is teaching you? Sometimes what you are waiting for looks different than what you originally imagined. The blessing may come through an unexpected path, in an unfamiliar package, or at a surprising moment. Are you open to receiving in ways you did not plan? Faith-filled gratitude expands your capacity to remain hopeful. Hope is emotionally sustaining. Without it, waiting becomes draining. But gratitude fuels hope by constantly reminding you of God's faithfulness. What previous breakthrough can you remember when your hope was eventually rewarded? Reflecting on past faithfulness strengthens present endurance. If God has been trustworthy before, there is reason to remain steady now. Your history with God becomes evidence for your future confidence. Has God ever answered a prayer in a way you did not expect? Sometimes the greatest growth happens in the middle, not at the end. The waiting season teaches patience, emotional regulation, maturity, resilience, and trust. Could it be that this season is shaping you more than you realize? Instead of constantly asking, "When will this happen?" gratitude allows you to ask, "What is this season teaching me?" That shift changes everything. What has your current waiting season been teaching you about yourself? There is strength in being able to celebrate possibilities before they materialize. It means your joy is not held hostage by outcomes. It means your peace is not dependent on immediate evidence. Isn't that emotional freedom worth cultivating? Gratitude before the breakthrough also sharpens your discernment. It keeps your mind clear and your spirit attentive. You become less reactive and more observant. Have you noticed how anxiety can cloud judgment? When you remain thankful, you stay grounded. You do not become consumed by what is missing. You are able to appreciate what is still working while anticipating what is still coming. What is still going well in your life right now? This balance matters. You can desire more while still honoring the present. You can be ambitious while remaining grateful. You can pursue growth without living in chronic dissatisfaction. Does that balance feel difficult for you sometimes? Perhaps today is the perfect moment to begin thanking God in advance. Not because everything is already visible, but because your faith is choosing trust. Thank Him for wisdom that is coming, doors that are opening, healing that is unfolding, and alignment that is taking place. What are you ready to thank God for before it happens? Say it in your own heart, "God, I trust your process. I trust your timing. I trust that what is meant for me is being prepared." Sometimes that declaration alone strengthens your spirit. Can you feel the shift that comes when gratitude replaces worry? Your breakthrough may not be visible yet, but that does not mean it is absent. Seeds grow beneath the surface long before anything becomes visible. Progress often begins invisibly. Are you willing to honor invisible progress too? Continue preparing, continue believing, continue thanking God while the process unfolds. Tell me in the comments, what breakthrough are you thanking God for in advance today? There are few things that drain the human spirit faster than constant complaining. Complaining may feel like a harmless emotional release in the moment, but over time it begins to shape your mindset, influence your emotions, and affect the atmosphere around you. Have you ever noticed how exhausting it feels to stay focused on everything that is going wrong? The more you rehearse frustration, the more powerful frustration becomes in your life. What you repeatedly speak about often becomes magnified in your awareness. If your attention is constantly fixed on problems, disappointments, and delays, your inner world can quickly become heavy. What thoughts have been occupying your mind the most lately? Complaining often begins subtly. It can sound like harmless frustration, small irritations, or repetitive dissatisfaction. But if left unchecked, it slowly conditions the mind toward negativity. Have you caught yourself repeating the same complaints again and again? The issue is not that challenges are unreal. Life brings real pressure, real disappointment, and real inconvenience. But there is a difference between honestly acknowledging difficulty and allowing difficulty to dominate your entire perspective. Can you tell the difference in your own life? A complaining mindset creates emotional fatigue. It keeps you mentally circling around what is missing, what is delayed, or what is not meeting your expectations. This constant mental focus can become draining. Do you ever feel emotionally tired from replaying the same frustrations? Gratitude interrupts that cycle. It shifts your focus from scarcity to awareness. Instead of constantly analyzing what is absent, you begin noticing what is present. Isn't that a much healthier place to live from? Contentment does not mean lack of ambition. It does not mean you stop growing, dreaming, or pursuing meaningful goals. It simply means your peace is not dependent on constant external change. Have you ever confused contentment with complacency? A content heart can desire more while remaining grateful for what already exists. It understands that growth and gratitude can coexist. You can be hopeful about the future without being resentful toward the present. Does that balance feel challenging for you? Many people struggle with contentment because comparison keeps them restless. Social comparison, in particular, can quietly intensify dissatisfaction. You begin measuring your life against curated glimpses of someone else's journey. Has comparison ever made you feel behind? The problem with comparison is that it distorts reality. You are comparing your internal experience to someone else's external presentation. That is rarely a fair comparison. Why place unnecessary pressure on yourself using incomplete information? Contentment requires you to come back to your own path. Your life has its own rhythm, timing, and sequence of growth. What is unfolding for you does not need to mirror what is unfolding for someone else. Can you trust your own journey more deeply? Releasing complaints is not always easy because complaining can become habitual. Some people have practiced dissatisfaction for so long that it feels automatic. But habits can be changed through intentional awareness. What recurring complaint do you most need to release? Start paying attention to your language. Listen to the phrases you repeat. Are your words building perspective or reinforcing negativity? What tone has your self-talk carried recently? Words influence emotional climate. A person who constantly verbalizes lack often reinforces feelings of lack. A person who regularly practices gratitude strengthens feelings of sufficiency. Which emotional environment are your words creating? This is why gratitude is more than politeness. It is mental discipline. It is emotional recalibration. It teaches your mind to observe reality more accurately. Have you considered how much your words shape your emotional state? Complaining narrows perception. It makes your world feel smaller and more constrained. Gratitude expands perception. It helps you notice resources, opportunities, support systems, and possibilities you may have overlooked. Could your current frustration be limiting what you are able to see? Sometimes people complain not because life is empty, but because expectations are rigid. When reality does not match an imagined timeline or preferred outcome, frustration increases. Have unmet expectations been contributing to your dissatisfaction? Expectations are not inherently bad, but inflexibility can create suffering. Contentment teaches adaptability. It allows you to remain emotionally balanced even when plans shift. How adaptable have you been in this season? Releasing complaints also improves relationships. Constant negativity can create tension, emotional heaviness, and relational distance. Gratitude, by contrast, fosters warmth, appreciation, and connection. What atmosphere are you bringing into your relationships? Think about the people in your life. Are you more focused on their shortcomings or their value? Sometimes gratitude is needed not only toward God, but toward the people around you. When was the last time you intentionally expressed appreciation to someone? Contentment helps you enjoy the present more fully. Without it, you may spend your life mentally postponing peace. You tell yourself, "I'll relax when this happens," or "I'll be happy when that changes." Are you delaying your peace unnecessarily? There will always be another goal, another desire, another challenge to solve. If your ability to feel grateful is permanently tied to future conditions, satisfaction may always feel out of reach. What if peace is more available than you think? A content spirit recognizes abundance in the present moment. Not necessarily abundance of possessions, but abundance of meaning. Lessons, growth, and daily grace. What forms of abundance already exist in your life? You may already have more than a previous version of yourself once prayed for. More wisdom, more clarity, more stability, more experience, more discernment. Have you acknowledged how far you have already come? Sometimes dissatisfaction comes from forgetting progress. You become so focused on what is next that you lose awareness of what has already changed. Progress deserves recognition. Why minimize the growth you have worked so hard to achieve? Gratitude softens the nervous system. It reduces internal tension and allows your body and mind to experience more calm. Complaining does the opposite. It keeps your system activated and unsettled. Can you feel the difference between those two states? This is not about suppressing emotions or pretending everything is ideal. It is about refusing to let frustration become your default operating system. You can be honest and grateful at the same time. Does that distinction feel important to you? There is freedom in releasing complaints. It creates mental space, emotional space, spiritual space. Suddenly you are no longer carrying unnecessary resistance toward life. What might shift if you released your grip on chronic dissatisfaction? Contentment is deeply empowering because it places your peace back in your own hands. Instead of waiting for perfect conditions, you begin cultivating inner steadiness now. Isn't that a more sustainable way to live? You do not need everything to be ideal in order to be grateful. You only need awareness. Awareness of what is working, what remains, and what continues to support your life. What is still good in your life today? As you move through this week, challenge yourself to become more conscious of complaints as they arise. Replace them with intentional gratitude wherever possible. Notice what changes internally. Tell me in the comments, what complaint are you choosing to release and replace with gratitude today? A new week is more than just a change in dates on a calendar. It is a fresh opportunity, a new page, another chance to move forward with faith, clarity, and renewed expectation. The fact that you have entered a new week means there is still purpose attached to your life. Have you paused to thank God for bringing you into another week? Too many people enter a new week carrying the emotional residue of the previous one. They bring old disappointments, unresolved frustrations, and unnecessary anxiety into what was meant to be a fresh beginning. But this week can begin differently. What are you still carrying from last week that you need to release? Before you focus on responsibilities, deadlines, and obligations, Take a moment to align your heart through thanksgiving. Gratitude prepares your mind for possibility. It shifts your perspective from pressure to opportunity. Could gratitude become the foundation of your week? Declaring blessings over a new week is not about wishful thinking. It is an intentional act of faith and mental alignment. Your words help direct your focus, reinforce your beliefs, and influence your emotional state. What kind of words have you been speaking over your life lately? So often, people begin the week expecting stress, conflict, and exhaustion because that has become their pattern. But expectation matters. If you begin with intentional blessing, your mindset changes. What are you expecting from this new week? You can choose to declare favor over your schedule, favor over your decisions, favor over your conversations, assignments, responsibilities, and interactions. Why not begin with expectation instead of apprehension? Perhaps there are important decisions ahead of you this week. You may need clarity in business, relationships, finances, family matters, or personal growth. This is where intentional prayer and declaration become grounding. In what area of your life do you most need wisdom this week? Speak peace over your mind. A peaceful mind is one of the greatest assets you can carry into a demanding week. Mental clarity improves judgment, focus, and emotional resilience. Has your mind been feeling cluttered recently? Declare that confusion will not dominate your thinking. You do not have to enter the week overwhelmed and scattered. You can move through your responsibilities with steadiness and discernment. Doesn't that feel more empowering? Blessings over the new week also include emotional stability. There may be unexpected moments, challenging conversations, or changes in plans. But inner stability helps you respond rather than react. How do you typically handle unexpected stress? This week, declare patience over yourself, patience with your progress, patience with other people, and patience with timing. Rushed energy often creates unnecessary tension. Could you benefit from slowing your internal pace? Declare strength over your body as well. Your physical energy matters. You need rest, stamina, and the ability to show up fully in your daily responsibilities. Have you been honoring your physical well-being lately? Many people pray for productivity, but neglect the habits that sustain it. Blessing your week can also mean committing to healthier patterns, better rest, healthier routines, clearer boundaries, and intentional priorities. What habit would most improve your week if you strengthened it? Speak blessing over your finances. Not necessarily through magical thinking, but through wise stewardship, discernment, opportunities, and provision. Financial peace often begins with clarity and intentionality. What financial area do you want to improve this week? Declare wisdom over your spending, your earning, and your decision-making. Open yourself to opportunities for growth, efficiency, and learning. Sometimes blessing comes through improved habits, not only external increase. Have you considered that? Relationships deserve blessing too. Every week includes interactions that can either energize or deplete you. Speaking blessing over your relationships creates intentionality. It reminds you to show up with patience, kindness, and discernment. Which relationship in your life needs extra grace this week? Declare healthy communication. Misunderstandings can create unnecessary friction, but intentional communication reduces confusion and strengthens connection. Are there any conversations you need to approach thoughtfully this week? A blessed week is not necessarily a problem-free week. Challenges may still arise, but blessing changes how you meet those challenges. You face them from a position of steadiness rather than fear. Doesn't that make all the difference? This is why declarations matter. They are not about controlling every outcome, but about consciously shaping your mindset. You are telling your mind what environment you intend to cultivate. What environment do you want to create internally this week? Declare open doors where appropriate, opportunities aligned with your growth, purpose, and development. Not every opportunity is right, but aligned opportunities are valuable. What opportunity are you hoping for this week? At the same time, Be open to redirection. Sometimes blessing comes through clarity about what not to pursue. A closed door can be just as protective as an open one. Have you ever later realized a closed door was actually beneficial? Bless your home environment. Speak peace into the spaces where you live, work, and rest. Environment affects emotional state more than many people realize. How would you describe the atmosphere around you right now? You can intentionally contribute to a healthier atmosphere through gratitude, calm communication, order, and mindful habits. Small environmental shifts can influence the tone of your entire week. What simple change could improve your environment? Bless your goals. Whatever you are building, learning, healing from, or moving toward, bring intentionality to it. Growth becomes more sustainable when it is approached with clarity and patience. What personal goal feels most important to you right now? Declare protection over your focus. Distraction is costly. The modern world constantly competes for attention, often fragmenting energy. Guarding your attention is an act of stewardship. Where does your focus tend to get pulled away? Bless your time. Time is one of your most valuable resources. Use it intentionally, not perfectly, but consciously. A blessed week often begins with thoughtful prioritization. How intentional are you with your time? There is also value in blessing your emotional boundaries. Not every issue requires your full emotional investment. Not every opinion deserves your attention. Emotional discipline protects energy. What has been draining your emotional bandwidth recently? This week can be marked by healthier boundaries, clearer focus, and more grounded decision-making. Blessing your week includes protecting your peace. Are you willing to prioritize your peace more intentionally? Speak confidence over yourself. You do not need to enter the week doubting every step. Trust the wisdom, growth, and experience you have developed. What area of your life currently requires greater confidence? Remind yourself that you do not need to do everything at once. One step at a time is still progress. A blessed week is often built through consistent, manageable action. Have you been placing unrealistic pressure on yourself? Begin this week with gratitude, intention, and expectation, not because you know exactly how everything will unfold, but because you are choosing to enter with a healthier internal posture. What would change if you approach this week with more confidence and less fear? As you move forward, keep your heart open to both visible and invisible blessings. Stay attentive to small wins, meaningful progress, and moments of grace. Tell me in the comments, what blessing are you declaring over your new week today? A life rooted in gratitude does not happen by accident. It is shaped by daily choices, repeated awareness, and intentional spiritual discipline. When you decide to make Thanksgiving your lifestyle, rather than a moment, something profound begins to shift within you. Have you ever thought about gratitude as a lifestyle instead of just a prayer? Most people treat gratitude as something they do occasionally, usually when things are going well or when they remember to pause and reflect. But a lifestyle of praise means gratitude becomes your default response, not your occasional reaction. What would change in your life if gratitude became your first response instead of your last resort? When Thanksgiving becomes a lifestyle, your mindset begins to transform. You no longer wait for perfect conditions to feel thankful. Instead, you find reasons to appreciate life even in imperfect moments. Isn't it interesting how perspective can completely change emotional experience? A lifestyle of praise shifts your focus from lack to abundance. It trains your mind to notice what is working rather than obsessing over what is missing. Over time, this awareness creates emotional stability. Are you more focused on what is missing or what is already present in your life? This does not mean you ignore challenges or pretend everything is perfect. It means you refuse to let challenges become your entire identity. You can acknowledge difficulty without allowing it to define your entire emotional world. Can you separate your circumstances from your identity? When gratitude becomes habitual, it begins to influence how you think, speak, and respond. Your words become more intentional. Your reactions become more measured. Your emotional responses become more balanced. Have you noticed how your environment shifts when your language changes? A person who lives in thanksgiving naturally becomes more aware of God's presence. They begin to recognize moments of guidance, protection, provision, and favor more clearly. Awareness increases sensitivity. Have you ever had a moment where you realized later that God was guiding you all along? Living a lifestyle of praise also strengthens emotional resilience. Life does not stop bringing challenges, but your internal capacity to handle them expands. You become less easily shaken by temporary setbacks. What has helped you stay grounded during difficult seasons? Gratitude also deepens your relationship with God because it keeps your heart in a posture of humility and recognition. Instead of only approaching God with requests, you begin to approach Him with appreciation. How often do your prayers include thanksgiving compared to requests? This shift is powerful because it changes the tone of your spiritual life. Prayer becomes less transactional and more relational. You begin to enjoy presence rather than only seeking outcomes. Have you experienced moments where simply being in God's presence felt enough? A lifestyle of praise also influences your emotional health. Chronic stress often comes from constant focus on what is wrong or uncertain. Gratitude interrupts that cycle by re-centering your attention. What emotions tend to dominate your daily thought patterns? When gratitude is consistent, anxiety begins to lose its grip, not because challenges disappear, but because your perspective becomes broader. You start to see beyond immediate pressures into longer-term possibilities. Isn't it powerful how perspective can reduce emotional weight? People who live in thanksgiving tend to experience more joy in simple things. They notice small details others overlook. A conversation, a sunrise, a moment of peace, a kind gesture. These become meaningful again. When was the last time you found joy in something simple? This kind of awareness does not happen automatically in a distracted world. It requires intentional slowing down. It requires choosing presence over pressure. Are you giving yourself permission to slow down enough to notice life? Gratitude also strengthens your ability to forgive. When you focus on what you are thankful for, bitterness has less space to grow. It becomes easier to release offense when your heart is filled with appreciation. Is there something you need to release in order to experience more peace? A lifestyle of praise does not ignore pain, but it prevents pain from becoming permanent residents. It allows healing to take place gradually, gently, and consistently. What area of your life still needs emotional healing? When thanksgiving becomes consistent, your relationships also improve. Appreciation changes how you see others. Instead of focusing on flaws, you begin noticing strengths. Have you been acknowledging the good in the people around you? Simple expressions of gratitude can transform interactions. A thank you, a kind word, a moment of recognition can strengthen connection. When was the last time you intentionally appreciated someone in your life? A lifestyle of praise also helps you stay grounded in identity. It reminds you that your worth is not based on performance alone, but on being created, sustained, and loved. Do you sometimes measure your worth by productivity? Gratitude brings you back to truth. It reminds you that even on difficult days, you are still supported, still guided, still held. Isn't it comforting to know your life is not carried by you alone? When thanksgiving becomes your lifestyle, you begin to notice patterns of favor more easily. Opportunities that once seemed random begin to feel intentional. Timing begins to feel aligned. Have you ever looked back and seen how things work together in unexpected ways? This awareness builds trust. You start believing that even delays have meaning, even detours have purpose, even closed doors carry protection. Can you trust that what is unfolding in your life is still working for your good? A lifestyle of praise also strengthens discipline. It requires you to consciously redirect your thoughts when negativity arises. It is not passive, it is intentional practice. What thoughts do you need to redirect more often? Over time, gratitude reshapes your emotional baseline. You are no longer constantly swinging between extremes of frustration and excitement. Instead, there is a steady sense of peace underneath everything. Wouldn't you prefer emotional steadiness over constant fluctuation? Living this way also influences your decisions. A grateful heart tends to make wiser, calmer, more thoughtful choices. It is less reactive and more reflective. How often do you make decisions from peace versus pressure? Gratitude also helps you stay aligned with purpose. When you appreciate your journey, you become more committed to it. You stop constantly wishing you were somewhere else and start engaging with where you are. Are you fully present in your current season? A lifestyle of praise teaches you endurance. It helps you stay consistent even when results are not immediate. It strengthens your ability to continue showing up. What is one area of your life where you need greater consistency? It also helps you recognize growth. Sometimes progress is slow and subtle, but gratitude makes it visible. You begin to see how far you have come instead of only how far you still have to go. Can you identify growth in your life that you previously overlooked? When Thanksgiving becomes your lifestyle, even silence becomes meaningful. Even waiting becomes purposeful. Even uncertainty becomes manageable. What if silence is not absence, but preparation? This way of living is not about perfection. It is about awareness. It is about choosing gratitude again and again, in small moments and large moments alike. Are you willing to practice gratitude more intentionally starting today? As gratitude becomes your natural response, your entire life begins to reflect it. Your thoughts, your words, your reactions, your relationships, and your inner peace all begin to align with a deeper sense of awareness. Tell me in the comments, what does a lifestyle of gratitude look like for you right now?